CataractCoach.com. Cystotome Capsulorhexis. It's a helpful technique that can be done through a tiny incision. Our guest center here is Dr. Mustafa from Bangladesh. You can see a very white, opaque cataract here. We already stained the capsule with trypan blue dye. And here's where I want to show you this technique. Now, in the U.S., this technique's not done that often. It's much more common in other countries. And you can see just using the 27-gauge bent needle, that's your cystotome, you can actually create a round rhexis. And you can do this through obviously a very tiny incision because it's just a 27-gauge needle. You can go through a paracentesis. And you can create a very nice round controlled capsulorhexis. The technique is a lot harder to learn than you may think if you've never tried it. And that's because you're just using the bare amount of friction that comes between the lens capsule and the tip of that needle in order to get that thing rotated. And so you have to be very cautious here when you do this because it's a lot harder than you think. But it's a technique that you can definitely try and practice. If you're already using a cystotome to start your rhexis, well, why not try this? Start doing a quarter of your rhexis with just the cystotome, and then a half, and then 3/4. And soon enough, you're doing the whole rhexis with just your cystotome. So it is an important technique to learn. I do use it from time to time. I'm certainly adept at doing it, even though I don't do it on a routine basis. But you should definitely learn it. So for this dense cataract, looks like a groove down the middle. What do you guys think? You think of divide and conquer, or you think of stop and chop? I'm watching this video for the very first time, just like you. So here's a groove down the middle. Looks pretty good. I'd go a little deeper, perhaps, unless you're going to chop. Let's see. It's split very nicely. I like it. Rotating the nucleus again. And let's see if it can be split a little bit more. There you go. Propagate that crack. You want to fully separate those two halves, especially if you're going to do a stop and chop technique. Make sure the halves are absolutely freed from each other. Otherwise, you try to pull up one half and it's just held down by the attachment. So now there's a chop. So stop and chop technique. Nice vertical chop here. And that first quadrant can be removed pretty easily. So I hope you're like me. I hope you just enjoy watching other people operate. On YouTube, there are billions of video views of other people playing video games. And that's a very big thing among the young population especially, is watching others play video games. But you know what the world's best video game is? It's cataract surgery. It's the video game that doesn't get old. It can be decades into this and you'll still love doing it. And so I just love watching cataract videos, and I really get something out of every one that I do. I also like to be a little critical when I watch these. I always think, all right, what could I do in this case? What would I have done differently? Oh, I like this video. Check it out. Look at the draping. Lashes are out of the way. It's pretty good draping. Eyes pretty much in primary. Looks like the surgeon's sitting superiorly. Not my preferred, but certainly works well. Look at the incisions. Good tunnel length. I like the spacing of the incisions. The para and the main incision are 2 to 3 clock hours apart. I like the tunnel length of the main incision. I like that it barely nicked the limbal vessels. And I like the way the surgeon operates, where the eye stays in primary the whole case. And it's a very efficient manner that the surgery is being done. And the two-handed technique works beautifully. Again, this is an unedited video. So a little bit of lens cortex that's remaining. The nucleus is already out. A little bit of viscoelastic. Looks like an HPMC or hydroxypropylmethylcellulose. Oh, another paracentesis down there. Let's see. Hey, teach me something. Let's see what we got here. A Simcoe cannula. There we go. So Simcoe cannula, Simcoe. The Simcoe cannula is not commonly used in the U.S., but it's a manual way of doing essentially irrigation aspiration. This device, as you push with one syringe to inject fluid, the other syringe is aspirating. So you do basically the irrigation aspiration just with a manual device. And you can see it works pretty well. So Simcoe device in action. Typically we use a Simcoe device like we're doing like an SICS procedure. That's the small incision cataract, the manual extraction. Because now you may not have a phaco machine. If you do have a phaco machine already, I don't know why I'd use a Simcoe instead of just using an IA probe. If it's a cost issue, you can use a permanent or a non-disposable IA probe, and that's pretty easy. But obviously, look, Simcoe works well too. It depends on your technique and your age. And that's because I think surgeons under age 50, very unusual for them to use a Simcoe cannula. Surgeons over age 50, I think it's a lot more common. So cleaning up the capsular bag here looks pretty good. Rhexis, to me, it looks very nice and round. In my preference, a little on the small side, probably a 4.5 millimeter Rhexis. But let's take another look when the IOL goes in the capsular bag. That's probably a better way of judging the size. And so beautiful technique here. I want to thank Dr. Mustafa for sending the video in. Very nice technique. I really enjoyed watching this video. And I think you, all my readers, should be encouraged to learn how to do a capsulorhexis with a cystotome. You're not going to use it all the time, but in the case where you do use it, wow, you'll be glad that you can do that. You don't need any special instruments, just a bent needle, and you get a rhexis done through a small incision with either left hand, right hand from almost any angle. End of the case here, cleaning up, everything looks beautifully performed. Thank you again for submitting your video.